Andy, welcome to Locked In, man, a fellow Connecticut resident.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to all of our Connecticut guests and listeners that come on the show. People love the Connecticut stories because it like puts Connecticut on a map a little bit.
Right.
And I'm from Danbury, so it works out. But thanks so much for reaching out, man, and coming on the show and taking time to be with us today.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for having me. This is pretty cool. It's not normally what I'm used to, but it is nice to be here. I appreciate it.
Of course. I mean, you walked in and I'm in a whole prison era outfit filming some sketch. You're like, what did I get myself into, man? Get me the F out of here.
Yeah, right. No, it wasn't too surprising, but it was, I like the commissary setup up there. And
yeah, it's always
cell.
Like a flashback for people when they come to the studio and they see that we have that. They think it's so cool. And it is cool in a way that we replicated that and stuff.
It is.
Did you grow up in Connecticut?
I did. So I was born and raised in Connecticut. I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Moved to, really my story begins when I moved to Woodbury, 6 years old. My mother and father, original mom and dad, they divorced when I was about 2. And my real father moved to Hawaii. I was probably about 3 years old, and he was out there, my whole life growing up. My mom got remarried to my stepfather, and they had a kid. So I have a half brother, 6 years younger than me. We live from Woodbury. It's like I don't know if you're familiar with Woodbury at all, but it's a small town. It's, mostly, farmers, back then it was like, predominantly white, small high school, middle class though. My stepdad was a carpenter. My mom was a hairdresser, nothing too out of the ordinary growing up. Statistically speaking, I probably shouldn't have turned out the way that I did, honest to God. But, life comes at you in all kinds of directions and, you make what you can with it. And, I'm glad I made it out on the other end okay. But
that's all that matters. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish.
Yes, totally.
Were you resentful to your mom at all about the divorce?
No. My father, yes. My dad, big time. My mom, no. I'm not ashamed to say I'm a mama's boy, kind of, like I'm tight with my mom. My mom knows everything. I tell her everything. She's had my back through everything that I've been through and put my family and her through. She was always there for me. I always tell her, like, if I ever had a child that was like me, I don't know. I probably would have told that kid to kick rocks. I don't know how she stuck by my side and helped me out through everything over the years. Cause I don't know, I was hard, later on growing up, I was a good kid, played sports, little troubles here or there, nothing crazy.
How do you think you would describe yourself for that time period, characteristics wise? Fun. I had 4-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and we'd go out on the boat in the summer type deal. Like, I had we had a good time. It was fun growing up. Playing sports. I was huge into baseball from little kid time. If you want me to just hop right into it, kind of. Yeah, tell us everything, man.
So high school, I didn't, I got decent grades. I skated by, middle school. High school, I turned more into like a social life and didn't care so much for my grades. I still wasn't, I was getting into trouble, but I wasn't a bad kid, I'd have to say, I really didn't even do any drugs until like in high school, my junior year summer, and weed was obviously the first drug that I chose aside from alcohol. And the progression just got worse and worse as I got older, from as soon as I got a taste, I would get tired of it and I would move on to what's next. By the time I was high school summer. By the time I graduated high school summer, you know, I was already dabbling with, you know, hallucinogens like pills, drugs of that sorts, you know, alcohol obviously was always included. And I never went to college. Let me think for a sec. So I was bouncing around my mom's house and like friends' houses in Woodbury, people that I knew that I was using drugs with. And I was using heroin at the time, heroin and crack. Of course, you know, my mom finds out. I went to a rehab in, oh my gosh, it was called Mountainside in Canaan, I think, Connecticut. And I don't know if I believe it's still there, but I think it might be called something different now. And I ended up going to a sober house in New Haven. And of course, you know, I was young, you know, I was probably 19, 20 years old. And at that time, I really didn't think that I was done using drugs. I was just, you know, people pleasing kind of, you know, telling my mom, you know, like, yeah, okay, I'll go do this to make her happy or whoever, you know, like skate through. But in the back of my mind, like I was like, I'm too young. There's no way I'm not going to stop using drugs forever, you know. And another probably less than a year or so, you know, I get kicked out of the sober house, relapse, obviously. I remember I was working in Orange for a fence company, and it was right around Christmas time. And I don't know if I quit my job or I lost my job, got my tax return. I was living in South Main Street, Waterbury, in like this really crap hotel. And I was down and out. And I wasn't allowed back at home. I'd kind of burnt that bridge a little bit with my mom. And I had, you know, my dad was original father, still in Hawaii. I have a big family too. My mom has 5 brothers and sisters and a bunch of cousins. Like we're all really tight. And my cousin, who's the same age as me, Allison, I'll never forget. She called me up and I was living in that hotel, and she's like, they call me Ann. Well, Ann, what are you going to go do? You know, what's your plan? What's happening? And I was like, I had no idea. She goes, well, why don't you call your dad up and see if you could go out to Hawaii? And I got off the phone. I was like, no, wait, I'm not doing that, you know? And she got off the phone and she kind of like planted that seed in my mind. I was like, fuck, I don't know I don't have a choice really. And I had probably like, I don't know, $1,500 to my name. And I was like, okay, I'm looking at tickets wasn't even on the phone then, but I was looking at tickets for a plane ride. I found a one-way, $1,000. I called up my dad. I was like, who I hadn't talked to, and I don't know, it was years. I really don't remember. It was probably since 8th or 9th grade was probably the last time I talked to him. So it had been a few years. And he would always try and call my mom and, you know, want to talk to me, but I didn't really want anything to do with him. You know, I had bad blood thinking about him leaving me, and like I was, you know, like played the poor me role. Like, you know, I was chapped about that. But I was out of options, called him up, asked him if I could come out there, gave him a little bit of a rundown of what was going on and why I needed to. But he didn't really know to the extent of how shitty my life had been. And of course, he said, yes, come. And he was remarried also. And he goes, come. So I remember it was February. I flew out. I remember it was freezing cold in Connecticut. I get on the plane and I get off. He lived on the Big Island, Kona. I don't know if you're familiar with Hawaii at all, but it's beautiful year round in Kona, you know, 85 and sunny every day of the year. They don't even have the terminals that you walk through on the airports. They just roll one of those big carriages up and you just walk off the plane on, you know, they're just putting leis around your neck at the bottom of the stairs and stuff. I was like, holy cow, this is February in Hawaii. I was like, I can get used to this. You know, I also remember being really dope sick because I like quit the dope. I didn't go to rehab, detox, or anything. I quit, and for a few days there, it was rough. I remember being on the airplane, not feeling good at all. Rough that out. And then I get to Hawaii. I have to say, it was awkward at first, not seeing or talking to my dad for so long. And him and his wife, it was just the two of them in where they lived. They were set in their ways. Like I was, maybe not a thorn in my dad's side, but more so Virginia's side, my dad's wife. But he was happy to have me around. I think that I made her jealous because he was so happy to have me back there, or with him. It was nice though. I have to say, it was really nice to rekindle the relationship with my father, and we got along great. I actually stayed out of trouble and stayed off of drugs, like cold turkey. I worked a lot. I ended up getting a job for a rubbish company. Hauling trash, which I enjoyed. It was something different and exciting every day. I don't know. People always say there's two people you don't piss off, the rubbish man and the mailman, But I liked my job. I liked my life. It was going well. So if I moved 2006, I want to say is when I moved to Hawaii. And then it was like 2007, 8, 9. Yeah, about 4 years almost. I was good in Hawaii. So let me back up. His wife died of cancer, I think in 2008 or 9. And so she was out of the picture. And it was just me and my dad there. And he lived in a condo. It was a small condo complex. Now, I think there was only like 19 units. So there weren't a lot of, tenants, but there was this one guy there. I mean, I feel like everybody can relate. You always have bad neighbors.
Always.
Yeah. I don't know. There's always that one guy.
All right, listen up. If you're online without NordVPN, you're basically asking for trouble. I'm serious. Whether I'm traveling, working from a coffee shop, or just binging my favorite shows, I know my data is locked down tight. Ever tried to stream a game or a show and got hit with that annoying "not available in your region" message? Yeah, I hate those messages. No thank you. NordVPN lets me switch my virtual location in seconds so I can watch what I want from wherever I want. Plus, public Wi-Fi, total hacker playground. But with NordVPN's encryption, my info stays mine. And get this, I've even saved money on flights and hotels just by changing my virtual location. Crazy, right? Only in 2025. Fastest VPN out there, unlimited access and security like a digital fortress. NordVPN is a no-brainer. So if you're online, which obviously you are, you need NordVPN. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Ian Bick, where you'll get 4 extra months free on a 2-year plan. And don't worry, there's no risks with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description. We have a bad neighbor in this building, a couple that give us a hard time.
And you can relate, and you never know what's going through somebody's, fucking mind. You really don't. You don't. And I learned that in prison even, but so this guy, he was an older gentleman. I want to say probably 50s, mid 50s or so. I don't remember. I don't know if I could say names or not on here.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Craig. His name is Craig Wells. And he was a fucking scumbag. He is. He is, but he would cause problems. He was a big drinker and he didn't have a job. I think he was from California originally, and he would cause problems with everybody inside that in there. He was whacked. Like people would be on the grill by the pool. He would go run down there, take off the propane tank, or he would deflate air in people's tires or break their mirrors off. There's this old lady who was the president of the board, the whole HOA or whatever for the condo. He slapped her. He had the cops called on him multiple times. The guy was just,
he was just a nutcase. So this is kind of where I guess my story kind of really begins. And I remember, I think I wasn't living with my father at the time. I had my own place. I was renting like a studio somewhere on the Big Island in Kona. I would go over there and do dinners with my dad after work. And, you know, we'd play cribbage. We'd play cribbage or, you know, the card game and cook dinners together. Craig and my dad, they butted heads hard because, you know, my dad was like a no-nonsense kind of guy and Craig was just a jackass. And my dad gets a call on his landline and it's the board association saying, oh, we're going to hit you with a fine because Craig said he reported you pouring engine oil down the drain in the visitors' parking lot of the condo complex, which was complete nonsense. You know, I work for a rubbish company. If we need to discard oil, I could get rid of it. Like my dad would never do that. You know what I mean? My dad's like, I'm not paying this. Like, this is hearsay. You know what I mean? This guy, it's not like you have a photo or like, it was just nonsense. And I was drinking alcohol. I wasn't doing any drugs, but I would drink beer. And I was probably 4 or 5 beers in. I think it was like a Thursday night. It was a weekday night. I know I had work the next day. And my dad's like, I got to go upstairs because there's 3 levels, the first floor, second floor, and third floor. My dad lived on the first floor. Craig was on the second floor. And he goes, I'm going to go talk to this guy. You know, I got to just say, like, what's the problem? Why is he doing this? And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to let you go up there by yourself. You know, like, no way. And I remember I went up there. I didn't have a shirt on. I just went up there with flip-flops on and surf shorts. You know, I was hanging out with my dad. Like, we weren't going up there to fight or scrap, nothing, you know, wasn't like that. And I remember we go upstairs, my dad knocks on the door and I'm sitting, so there's a railing behind the door and I'm leaning on the railing looking at my dad's back and my dad's in the doorway. And Craig opens the door and my dad's like, Craig, the fuck? Why are you saying, what's the problem? What's going on? Craig didn't say a word and it looked like he punched my dad in the face. And I was like, what the hell? I remember I grabbed my dad's shoulder, I pulled him back, and I just started laying into Craig. And, you know, his hall, down the doorway is a hall, and I'm backing him up into his house, punching him. He gets knocked out, and I remember his whole wall, from floor to ceiling was one big mirror, the whole wall. And I remember looking at my head, my chin was like hanging right here and there was blood and I was like, what the heck? And I look in my arm, all blood and blood everywhere. I was like, he had a buck knife like this big and he stabbed me about 8 times with it. And I didn't know, I thought my dad was fine. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, Dad, we need a fucking ambulance. Like, holy shit. I was kind of in shock. Craig's still laying on his back, like coming to a little bit. And my dad's like, I'm going to call an ambulance. And he ran down to his unit to call the cops. Now I'm up here with Craig and he keeps trying to get up. And I'm stomping his face. I'm kicking him in the head. I'm like, Craig, I won't touch you. Just don't try and get up. I remember he had a white t-shirt over his couch. I remember taking the t-shirt and tying my arm up. And there was like a step that went into the bedroom and his head was below the step. And I sat on the step and just kind of kept my foot on his head. And I was looking around his house for a phone. And I was like, holy shit, where's the phone? Where's the phone? I see it on a shelf. I go walk, grab the phone. I come back. I call 911. And they're like, we just spoke with your father. We have 2 ambulances on the way. And I was like, 2? I was like, okay. Like, I just told him that I was stabbed. You know, I hang out there for probably 10, 15 minutes with Craig, just smashing his face. I really just didn't want him to get up again. You know, I was already torn up from the knife. I was still kind of in shock. And I remember going, okay, too. I started thinking like, damn, did my dad get stabbed? And so the cops come in, you know, guns drawn. I was like, hey, I'm a victim here. I was like, I need to go to the hospital right now. This fucking guy stabbed me. You know what I mean? They come, they arrest him, and they take me into the elevator because the elevator, you know, goes down to the garage level where the ambulance is. And there's blood in the elevator I see already. And I go, fuck, that's my dad's blood, guaranteed. I get outside. He's already in the back of the ambulance. And I remember this is, you know, just a Thursday night. I'm just going over there and hang out. I wasn't expecting all this shit to go down. I remember grabbing my dad's foot and I was like, Dad, you know, hang in there, you know. I'll never forget that. That was, you know, it was a tough pill to swallow, you know. That was over fucking nonsense. It was a tough pill to swallow. They take me to the hospital, and the whole time I'm asking, like, you know, what's up with my dad? Is my dad okay? You know, where is he? Nobody comes out, says anything. I remember they stitched up this whole arm. I don't know, I have a couple stab wounds, and it took a while. Like, this is like an hour and a half. Another doctor comes out, and he's like, your father was stabbed once in the heart and he bled out before we could save him. You know, and it's like, I kind of knew it, but I didn't know it. You know, I didn't hear confirmation. I had no idea where he was stabbed. I didn't know, you know, it was surreal. You know, would never in a million years think that anything like that would ever happen to me. You know, like, that's some shit that you hear on fucking movies or news and stuff. You know, you just don't think it would happen to you. And it was tough. That was really hard on me to, you know, get a hold of. I remember, this was another thing that I struggle with. So I was in the hospital for a couple days healing. Detectives are coming in there, obviously, and they're asking me questions about, you know, what had happened, blah, blah, blah. I tell them everything word for word, same as how I just told you. And they go, this is detectives now. And they're like, why didn't you fucking kill the guy? You know, they're like, you could have just cut his head off and told us a made up story. And I'm like, you know, well, like, you know, like, I was at the time, I was kind of regretting not doing that. You know, he was knocked out cold. The knife was right there. Like, I don't know. I had no idea my dad was stabbed either, though. You know, it's probably for the better. I'll let, you know, like, God judge him in the end. But, you know, it was surreal to hear the cops tell me that, you know. And so I remember I called my mom, The Rock, and she, in the hospital, I called her. And that night, it was right after I ID'd. They made me ID my dad's body, too. And I remember I go in there and his whole chest is opened up. And I was like, geez, you guys, you know, couldn't throw a sheet over that or something. You know, it was like, well, it was really crude to see. And I called my mom. She flew, because she's in Connecticut still. She flew out at the drop of a dime, and she made it to Hawaii the day that I got out of the hospital. And we were sorting out, like, you know, funeral stuff. Like, we got my dad cremated. She begged me to come back to Connecticut too. She begged me to come back to Connecticut. And my dad was the only person I knew out there, family. And I was not having it. I knew in my mind that the race was on. Like, I had made up my mind I was going to do drugs, and that's what I wanted to do. You know, hindsight's always 20/20.
At the time, though, there wasn't anything that anybody could have told me otherwise. I was going to stay in Hawaii. And she stayed out there a few weeks, got everything helped me get everything together or whatever. She flew back to Connecticut, and I started using drugs in Hawaii. Now, over here, they, I don't know, I don't do drugs anymore, but I've never heard, very rarely I hear about crystal meth in Connecticut. It's heroin and cocaine mostly. I don't think, unless it's changed nowadays, I don't think ice is too prevalent, but in Hawaii, that's all there is, really. It's like an epidemic over there. It's so bad. And I had a buddy through the trash business, and I knew he had been to prison and he had done drugs and he had connections, and I, hit him up and was like, let's try this crystal meth. And I did. And I liked it. I was doing anything and everything really to get out of, my own sorts there, because, I played the victim again, like, oh, poor me, nobody loses their dad like that in front of them. And, I was justifying me using drugs in my mind because of what had happened. And so I stayed out of trouble probably for about, I don't know, I want to say 2 months maybe. I was using drugs every day, but I wasn't breaking the law really, aside from using the drugs. And I was in touch with the prosecutor who was gonna go do the trial against Craig. I was the only witness, I guess, and they wanted me to take the stand in his trial. And this is another thing that really bothers me. Like, the criminal justice system in the United States, I feel, is so, it has its issues. Money buys you freedom. 1,000,000% money buys you freedom. And so I end up getting arrested, and my first charge, I robbed a drug dealer with a BB gun, of Oxycontins, McDonald's parking lot in Kona. And I ended up, I robbed the guy. I get to my car, and he's in the middle of the parking lot going, "Help, police, help, I've been robbed." And I was like, is this guy serious? I had one of those CO2 BB guns under my seat, and I pulled it out and I shot him with it. And he called the cops and told the cops that I tried to take his wallet. And my first charge in Hawaii was attempted armed robbery. I got his pills. Wasn't going for his wallet. And I was like, this drug dealer's calling the cops on me. I was like,
it's always funny hearing those stories that the drug dealer called the cops.
Yeah, it blows my mind. And
those black BB guns, the CO2 ones, look real.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pistol.
Real as day. The thing had packed a punch, too. I wouldn't want to get shot with one of those.
That could definitely seriously hurt someone.
Yeah.
At close range, too, nonetheless.
Yeah. I was kind of just mad he was yelling for the police. I should have just drove away. But I was just like, is this guy serious? You know what I mean?
Do you think that you turned it back to drugs because that's all you knew as a coping mechanism?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And still yet in the back of my mind, I still think that at that time, I hadn't convinced myself that I was done using drugs yet. I still had plans to get high. Obviously, I was drinking alcohol, but alcohol doesn't really do it for me compared to how the drugs did it for me. And I had reservations. Even then, I was still kind of young. I want to say that was 2010. So that's 14 years ago. So I was 39 now, 24 years old.
25.
Yeah, right around there, 2010. And so I get arrested. I bail out. I get a call from the prosecutor that is prosecuting Craig. And she goes, you just lost credibility as a witness and we can't have you take the stand. I'm just going to make a deal with him because he was taking it to trial. He was fighting it the whole way. And he made up a cockamamie story that my dad and I had kicked down his door and we were trying to rob him. And that didn't look good on my end when I go out and rob a drug dealer. You know what I'm saying? And he had money. He hired like attorneys from California. He hired his own crime scene investigators. And he got an open 20 with a 2-year minimum. So that guy ended up doing 2 years for killing my dad and stabbing me. And then, he's still on parole, I imagine. I know that he got out because I was in the same prison system as him later on.
That's all he got?
That's all he got. 2 fucking years. That's what even made me regret not,
They should have put you on the stand either way because they could have seen your emotion and you could have explained your side of the story.
Oh, it makes me sick to think about it. I lost a lot of sleepless nights over that. I had a lot of sleepless nights over that because that really bothered me a ton. Kona, the Big Island it's small. It's a really small, town. And everybody knows everybody. And I swear it should really be conflict of interest. But that same prosecutor that was prosecuting him was now on my case prosecuting me. And I was like, how is this even legal? It's like backwoods bamboo shit, like
conflict of interest.
Yeah, really, really. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to tell the lady? I was like, okay, yeah, whatever, make the deal, whatever you have to do. And then I go on the run. I was like, I remember talking to I had a public defender. I was out on bail. He said that, he goes, you're probably going to end up going to jail for this. He goes, you're probably going to have to do at least a year or so or something like that. And, I get one bad quality back then was, I would get the case of fuck it. I would really, once that train went rolling, I would be like, I'm already going, fuck it. Yeah, and I got arrested a few more times. I think I had 2 more arrests after that, and I bailed out on the second arrest. The third arrest, I ended up staying in because I couldn't convince my mom to help me out anymore, and there wasn't a bail bondsman in Hawaii that would bail me out. Because I would never show up to any of my court dates either. That was another thing, running from the bail bondsman and the law on bench warrants and stuff. That was kind of wild too.
Did they send dog after you?
No. But I tried calling Leland from the jail. His son Leland.
Because they're in Hawaii, right?
Yeah. I would see him everywhere. They wouldn't bail me out either. I remember calling, how they have those playback tones and you call his phone and his phone goes, I'm locked up. They won't let me out. And I was like, this cocksucker,
Wow. I'm glad I said the dog reference. It just clicked to that. That's where he's from and that's where it's filmed in, right? Hawaii?
Yeah. Well, Dog himself is Honolulu, Oahu, which is like where the most people are, the capital. But Leland is Dog's son. He has he's skinny. He's like a
long hair.
Yeah,
right?
long
ponytail,
hair. Yeah, ponytail. He lives on the Big Island and runs his own on the Big Island.
Because they had a breakup or something, right?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened, and I know Leland trains in a gym with Sonny. That big guy, the mustache that you would see on the show sometimes with Dog. He's like a old Kona boxer or whatever. And Leland is like big into UFC or all that.
We need Dog on the show.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah, no shit. That would be, I'm sure he's got some stories. But so I couldn't get bail, and I'm stuck in jail, the county jail on the Big Island. And I remember talking to my public defender and asking, what's going on there. She says the prosecutor wants to throw the book at you. You're gonna end up doing a lot more than a year now. And I knew I was going, and I was still kind of in like a lower custody jail on the Big Island now. And I made a plan to make an escape. And they had Halinani is the jail that I escaped from in Hilo, which is on the opposite side of the island of where I was from. And I had a buddy who worked laundry, and they have the big laundry carts that they push around. And I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to hide in that laundry basket. The laundry was in another building on the facility, and the cops just man the doors. They don't walk with you from building to building. I was like, when I'm hiding in that laundry basket, when you go outside, I'm gone. And during rec, I dug a hole. I found a rock in the rec yard that was flat like that. I dug a hole under the two fences, and took me a couple days. I had my friends blocking the ACO, the cops, while I'm digging the holes. And, I dug. I escaped. I remember I left on a Wednesday night, like 7:30 or so. And I made it back to Kona. Honestly, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan in mind. I'm on an island. Where the heck am I going to go? I'm the hottest character around because my face is on the news. Everybody's looking for you. Like, people that I know, they're like, I call them, they don't want anything to do with me. They're like, don't come over here, and draw heat my way. I was just really, like, honestly, mostly I just wanted to get high. That was really sad to say, but that was my plan, really, in a nutshell. But I ended up calling. So I didn't have a phone, and the number that I had memorized was a middleman to somebody else who I needed the number, who I knew I could get the number from him to get drugs. This guy's name, Hailama. I'll never forget it. I called him like a dummy. I told him where I was, I told him my situation. I told him I needed so-and-so's number. Hang up from him. And like, I'm walking from where I made it back to Kona. I was staying in like this pretty nice, like, gated community too. And I was walking across the street to like the shopping center complex. A cop car saw me on the road. I go, oh no. And so I creep through the lava rock, and I come up. The cop saw me. I started running. I come up on the other side, and there was already like, 30 vice, detectives, police, everything was already there. And they arrest me. And this is Friday at noon now. So I left Wednesday at 7:30. Friday by noon, I was already back in handcuffs. Let me back up. I have to say, so this is another big part of my story. So I broke my wrist. In a fight, and I had these pins coming out of my arm with a metal bar right here. It's like to keep my wrist from going like that. And I remember thinking, I was like, these guys are gonna fucking shoot me. I remember like once I always ran. Like whenever the cops, I ran. Whether I was in a car or on foot, I would make them, they would earn their paycheck that day reeling me in. And I remember thinking, like, don't shoot me. I was like, this is not a weapon, this is not a weapon. Like, they're trigger happy. I'm white. They don't like, most Hawaiians don't really like white people. And I was like, I just don't want to get shot because I have a broken wrist. So they catch me. I surrendered. They take me to cell block. I remember when they went to grab my wrist to put my arms behind my back, they grabbed me by that bar, and that bar came out. These 2 pins came out of my hand. My wrist just fell like that. And I remember my wrist had swollen up so bad that they couldn't even fit a cuff around it. They just cuffed it to the bar and behind my back. And oh, that was bad. But in the end, everything happens for a reason. You know, I'll get to that. It's kind of crazy, but
you know what they say, the hardest part is what happens after the escape. Escaping's easy. It's life on the run is the hardest.
Oh, you're not kidding. You're not kidding. Because you're right. The escape is easy. You know, then the plan is to the wind. You know, I agree.
I was watching some video on TikTok. I guess it must have been a small town, but an inmate was at court, and then the guard turns the other way, sneaks out the back door, runs, and literally goes on the run, goes through the courthouse, and I think they eventually catch the guy. But it's easier to escape than you think.
Yeah.
But being on the run is so hard, especially in this day and age.
Oh man, it is. Your face goes everywhere. Too many eyes. Too many people.
So what happens next? They catch you and they
catch
bring
me.
you.
Yeah, they bring me back to cell block. First thing the cops do when I get to cell block, they come and they're like, "Oh." I remember it was a couple detectives. They beat the shit out of me too. They pounded me out once I got there for causing such a ruckus, you know, for everybody on the island looking for me. They gave me dirty lickings. And I remember they come up and they're like, "Hey, you think Hai Lama is your friend?" They're like, "He's the one who told us where you were." And they would never known that, you know what I mean? So obviously the guy ratted. I go, "Well, you know, I hope he got a reward at least or something, you know, make it worth something." You know, boiled my blood a little. So I go back to the jail I escaped from. I'm in the hole. That was another thing, the escape. Once you escape and then go back to jail or prison, you know, because it all goes off of a point system. My points were through the roof. And I did a lot of hole time because of that. My first year and a half straight was in the hole. And my wrist was so bad, there wasn't a doctor on the Big Island because it's rural. You know, there wasn't a doctor capable of doing the surgery on the Big Island. So they flew me to OCCC in Honolulu because I'm still pre-trial. And I'm going through surgeries over there. This is another awful thing, but I remember sheriffs. So if I had a court date, sheriffs would come pick me up from OCCC and I would board a civilian Hawaiian airline flight in that same suit that you were just wearing, you know, with the belly chains and the ankle chains. And I'm walking through the airport and I'm like, everybody's looking at me like I'm Jeffrey Dahmer or something, you know, it's like really humbling. You know, mind you, all the floors are tile and it's like ting, 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 like with the chain. I was like, oh my God, like so embarrassing. But those were my court dates. I'd fly there and fly back for court. And so this prosecutor in Kona, man, I wish I could remember her name. It's Kobayashi. It's a Japanese lady. I remember that much. But she hated me. She wanted to slam me. And I remember being in the hole in OCCC and my public defender telling me, you know, they were trying, so all my charges were in Kona, except for the one escape charge, which was in Hilo. So it's two different courts. And my public defender was trying to switch all my, because I think I have 7 felonies, my 6 felonies to Hilo, where I could get them sentenced under one judge. The prosecutor in Kona she kept shutting it down because she wanted to sentence me and she was trying to get them to switch the Hilo one to Kona, not vice versa. And like the first deal that they came with and asked me, wasn't a deal, but it was like an open 20 with like a 16-year minimum. I was like, no way. Like I'm not no, I'm not, there's not a chance in hell I'm doing that. And then the deals, they were still shitty. I think I got 3 of them from her. The best one was like 3 consecutive 5s. And I was like, no. My public defender, Ann Dada was her name. She was a good public defender. She was on my side. She fought for me. She got all my charges in Kona switched to Hilo. When the prosecutor went on vacation, she wasn't there to shut it down. And so there was a fill-in or whatever. She got them all switched to Hilo. I went to the Hilo judge. I lost her as a public defender too in the process. So I had a new public defender, but now I'm in Hilo with this prosecutor who's not trying to drop the book on me. And I remember I get sentenced, and the day that I got sentenced, they run all my charges concurrent. I get an open 5, but I have no credit for time served. And at the time, I think I had like 1 year and 7 months in. So I lose that, and my time starts from that day doing my 5-year term. And I mean, honestly, with a 3-6 minimum, 3 years, 6 month minimum was where I was eligible to be paroled, which I was happy. I was like, wow, that's a lot better than, doing double digits. I felt like I hit the lotto with that, honestly. It was still a long time, but I feel like I won that one, without the escape being able to get switched to Hilo, and without the broken wrists where I had to fly to another island, I probably would have gotten sentenced a lot sooner with a lot longer of time to serve. So then I go to, it's called Halava Correctional, which is in Honolulu, and it's the state prison for Hawaiian inmates. And that they call it going to the valley, because you look out one side of the windows, all you see is mountainsides. You look out the other side, all you see is mountainsides, and the prison's like in the middle between 2 mountains. And so one thing about Hawaii, it's a melting pot. There's so many different nationalities. There's all those South Pacific islands like Micronesia, Tonga, Samoa, Laos. There's the Philippines. There's so many different kinds of people that in the Hawaii prison systems, it's not really race oriented. I mean, people see color. There's gangs. There's plenty of gangs, but there's not, like I could watch other people's TVs or sit next to them at chow or whatever, no matter the color of the skin.
There wasn't a lot of like politics.
No, because there were still gangs. There were politics, but I feel like it's probably a lot better than doing time in Hawaii prison is probably a lot better than doing time in a mainland prison, I'd imagine.
What kind of charges did people have?
Oh, everything from, I have to say, more than half of the prison is in there because of something crystal meth related. Either they were selling it or they were breaking the law to get money to supply it. Then, you get your few percent of, murderers and people that don't do drugs who, just snapped for 15 seconds of their life and have to, spend eternity paying for it type deal. So it was, it was a melting pot of charges too. I would say more than half though is meth related. And so Hawaii, one problem that they have is overcrowdedness in their prisons. They don't have, all their jails are really old. I think Halava was built in like the 80s. And I feel that the court system in Hawaii is really strict because tourism is the main thing in Hawaii. And if it's not safe for the tourists to come out there, people aren't going to want to come, you know? So I feel like you could get locked up. You could do an open 5 for just having a, meth pipe filled with meth in it. You know, I've seen people get, busted for shit like that. So they're strict. They are strict. And, they're like county, there's people sleeping on the floors. Some cells have 2 people on the floors. They even opened up the Fed building in Hawaii. I did Fed time, well, not Fed time, but I did county time inside the Fed building for a couple months, which is weird because they don't let you outside there. I don't know if yours was like that, but we didn't see daylight for, I don't know, however many months I was in there. You get the handball courts and the basketball courts that like break off the pod.
Yep, and it's just like maybe sometimes has a skylight in the corner.
That's it.
That's how it was here. I think all those detention centers are kind of the same.
Are the same, yeah. And the levels, were people pumping the toilets in the one you were in?
What do you mean by pumping? To talk? Yeah, they would talk to the women down below.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool how they do it in every state, no matter what.
Yeah, that would cause big drama too, because people could run into another cell and be like, hey man, can I borrow your cell? I got to talk to my girlfriend on the 7th floor, It's like talking into a toilet.
That's funny.
But so, overcrowdedness is an issue. And so if you're sentenced and you have 5 years or more to serve, I don't know how they pick or choose people to fly, but they send people to a private prison in Saguaro, Arizona. And so, of course, I was chosen to go to Saguaro, this private prison. And, we all strap up, we fly Con Air. It's like, the seatbelt straps, like for a seatbelt in a car. That's what they strap us with, I remember. And it goes around your waist. The same thing as what the chains are, but it's all belt straps, it looks like. And I'm strapped to 2 people. They strap you in 3s because the seat sits, the plane sits 3 at a time. And I fly to Arizona, and that's more like where, people in Halava are doing shorter bids. You get people doing 5+ years, lifers, more, I don't know, more hardened criminals, more people like of that nature in Arizona. But there's also more privilege in Arizona. Like you could get, you could buy a TV and have it in your cell. They have MP3 players. You could buy music and put it on your MP3 player. Commissaries once a week. The commissary list is 3 times the amount, that you could get in Halava. So life is more cushy in that sense over there. I'm not a big fan of private prisons either. I'm really not. I feel like that it's like farming people. It's like farming inmates. And I swear, I remember like going down there, there's like Red Rock, Saguaro. You look out the windows, it's just like prison after prison after prison. And they're all private prisons where people from states from all over the country send inmates to. And
they just care about their bottom line and how they can cut costs and everything like that.
Automatic. It's bad. It's bad. Hawaii pays whoever owns that private prison X amount of dollars for each Hawaiian inmate there, and so if this was my biggest issue with it. So I was eligible to be paroled in 3/6. Granted, I do my mandated parole board programs that they asked me to do, which is, I really don't remember. One of them was like anger management. One was like a drug class, and it was something else. I had to do 3 things. But in order to do these classes, you have to stay you can't have any write-ups. And if you get a write-up, you have to stay write-up free for another 6 months before you're eligible to be selected for that class again. And, I don't know. I just couldn't stay out of trouble in there, not like I wasn't an awful inmate. I was never in a gang. I just, I was never in my cell either, though. Gambling is probably the biggest thing that got me in trouble over there because, I don't know, nobody likes to lose, And
Give us a good gambling story of what happened to you there.
Okay, so I had a good bunkie at the end. I had a good friend at the end. I don't talk to anybody from prison anymore, but he was also my Spades partner.
I love Spades.
Oh man. I taught my girlfriend Spades, and her and I, we play one-on-one, where you pick up one, throw it away, keep the other. And, I love Spades too. Nothing's like 2-on-2 though. But we used to cheat. And we would send, hand signals of, if we had, boss Spades in there. We would never admit, but everybody in the pod thought we were cheating, and that would cause big problems. I remember him and I just got done hustling these two guys on the Spades table. We go into the showers, and the shower stalls, so the showers are 4 heads, in each. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 16 showers, 4 apiece. And we're in there by ourselves. And we both have our boxers on and our, flip-flops, and we're showering. These two dudes come running in there and start scrapping with us, saying that we're, I remember I had like soap in my eyes. I was like this, and all of a sudden I'm getting clocked in the jaw, and I'm like, oh, but we still never admit, just like, you guys are fucking sore losers. We'll, you want to scrap, we scrap. But, that got me in trouble a few times here or there. I was also, I remember at the end too, I don't know if they had this when you were there, but running tickets. Football is huge in there.
Of course, yeah.
Me and 2 buddies kind of did that together. I have to say it was fun. It helped time go by. You know what I mean? It's exciting. It helps the day along, Also, too, I feel like kind of knowing that you're getting away with something that you're not supposed to be doing is nice too.
It's the adrenaline rush. It adds some excitement to it.
Yeah. Like I got my tattoos in prison too. Like
all of them, or
this whole sleeve. Like doing that is, it was way to pass time.
What does your girlfriend think about the prison stuff? Did you tell her when you guys first met?
Yeah, I think so. She had heard a little bit about what had happened with my father and stuff, but so we hadn't talked. I knew her from when we were in high school together. She went her own way, I went my own way, and she's a good girl. She's a really good girl. She is, one thing I love about her, she's very family oriented. She's close knit with her family. She was raised right. She, her dad was a principal and superintendent. Like she was a good girl. Her sister too. She comes from a good family, and she never, got arrested or did drugs or anything like that. But I think it kind of, I don't know. I think it kind of blew her mind a little bit, maybe, that, when I tell her some of the stories and things that I had gone through and been through, because I don't know, not everybody knows what it's like inside there. It's a different world, and it's a dog-eat-dog world inside those fucking places too. And I'm happy that I was able to experience it, but I'm happy that I'm a free man. You
and me both.
I'm really.
And what's crazy is that the prosecutor literally knew your situation of what happened to your dad. All they had to do was give you some type of drug rehabilitation because you used that because of the incident with your dad.
Yeah.
And they should have just squashed that, did the right thing, sent you to a rehab or some type of program, give you probation, and it would have been the end of the day.
Yeah, I know. I was trying for drug court, but I get the BB gun incident was considered a violent charge.
Yeah.
And so
little do they know you were robbing a drug dealer.
Yeah, I know. I didn't say anything either. I don't think it would have even made a difference, but I was like, I wanted to tell the cops so bad, like, hey, you guys know that this guy's selling Oxycontin out his back fucking porch,
I hate those types of cases,
man.
Oh
my God.
They just, they jerk you around. That's a criminal justice system, They really do.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. But, people like you who come and talk about it and share like what average everyday people who don't have a lot of money go through.
Yeah.
that's eye-opening.
Yeah, totally.
So how long did you end up serving total?
6 years, 9 months.
And do you say, I'm getting the hell out of Hawaii when you're done? I know you finished it in Arizona, right?
But I did, but this is another thing. I remember trying to get released from Arizona because I was going straight back to Connecticut once I was done. I was like, get me away from these scumbags. Another thing that sucked because of my escape, I was my whole prison run was either closed custody or max custody. So, I'm around like the shot callers for the gang, like, not that they're all bad people, but the dirtbags of the dirtbags. You know what I mean? People who don't want to change. People who talk about how they could do things differently or learn something new from somebody else in there and then try it this way. Like I'm thinking like to myself, like, I want to change. I don't want to be back in here because that's only, you're either going to die or you're going to make it back in there. One of the two. I would be in there and I would see people leave and come back. I'd be like, within like 8 months, I'd be like, what the heck is wrong with you guys? Like I don't.
I think that's one of also the biggest flaws in the criminal justice system is that when you're in prison, and it's kind of like a double standard. They tell you don't associate with felons when you get out. So when you're in prison, you're with all these felons, and in most cases, they're worse people than what you did, and you're just getting like it's just you are who you surround yourself with.
Yes.
So when you're with evil, nasty people, how does that help you? How do you get rehabilitated? When the majority of them do not care about rehabilitation, it's tough.
Oh, it is. It's. You're spot on with that. Spot on. Even the help that you could get inside of prisons and like.
It's a joke.
Oh my God. And like staying, that's like with the private prison, you got to stay right up free for 6 months. And these cops, they'll go out of their way to write, like they'll just, write you up for some nonsense talking in the rotunda or something because they know that it's going to ruin your chances of parole. I remember I got denied parole. I think I saw like 5 or 6 times, always denied. Obviously, I didn't complete any of my programs. The very last time I saw them, I think I had like 6 months left to parole. And I was like, I'm good. I was like, I'm just going to max out. Like, now you guys want to parole me? It's going to take me another 4 months by the time, because they have to release me from Honolulu. So I would have to fly back there, which I did fly back there. I had to fly back to Halava, max out, and then get released from Honolulu. And that's what ended up happening. I got released September 11th of 2018. And my mom coordinated with, I think it was like, he was some sort of priest or preacher who did like things on the side to help out inmates. And he gave me a ride from Halava to the airport. And that was a good day. I didn't think that was ever going to happen. I remember my day of release even, and they're like supposed to come pick me up at 8 o'clock in the morning or something. And I remember being like, I wasn't looking at my watch, but I remember looking at the clock, man, like, fuck, it's like 8:20. Like I'm hitting the button like, hey, I'm supposed to get out today. Like, where are you guys? Get the ball rolling. They go at their own speed. Obviously, that. So I get released and I come back here and I flew back to my mom's, and it was nice to be home. I enjoyed life. I really enjoyed seeing family again. I have to say, I'm ashamed to say, I actually, right when I got out of prison, like I had dabbled with a little bit of drugs inside prison, but I never like spent money on it. Like if I had a roommate who had it, busted it out or whatever, I would probably use it, but I would never spend commissary or anything on drugs, and even getting high in there was awful. You get, you mind fuck yourself on things, thinking like, oh my God, who's going to tell, who knows type deal. And I remember my roommate, Jordan, who I played the spades with, I remember getting high once, and he's like, dude, if you can't stay sober in prison, how are you going to stay sober outside? Because I always told him I was done. I was done. I was done. I was like, man, that's a really good point, you know? And so I think for like my last, I don't know, maybe with my last 3 years in prison, I didn't use any drugs. And I got released, flew back to Connecticut. September, I was in Connecticut. So when I was in jail, I was always watching news and stuff, and I hear about the fentanyl epidemic in the Northeast, in Connecticut, in New York, Massachusetts. I hear all these people, you know, dying from fentanyl. And this sounds twisted, but it was like, you know, kind of made me want to try it, you know. And I ended up getting high for a few more times, and I got high from November to, I'd say, January of the end of 2018 to the beginning of 2019. And I ended up, what happened? I was with a friend that I knew from high school. I ended up getting arrested. I had marijuana. I was in the hood trying to cop in Waterbury. I got arrested for marijuana. All of it. I didn't get in any trouble for that or anything. But I remember sitting in the cell being like, what the fuck am I doing? How am I back here already? This is like 4 months later. You know, I was like, what the heck are you doing, Andrew? And from then on, I remember I got out. I ended up going to a detox. I went to a rehab in Torrington, Connecticut, and I went and lived in a sober house over there. I was going to AA meetings plenty, not doing any drugs, not drinking. And I kind of just I was over it. I was done. I was like, I can't waste any more time. You know, I'm getting older. You know, right now I'm 39, you know, then I was probably 35, 36. I was like, you have to do something with your life. Like this is going nowhere fast. You know, I lost everything in Hawaii, everything. You know, I come out to jail with just this shirt on my back, which wasn't even mine, you know, and I stayed in Torrington for a year or two. I was working at Amazon in Bristol. Life was going good. I think COVID hit. I ended up going to, I went back to school to learn how to work on CNCs at Naugatuck Valley Community College, and I moved back in with my mother. And then, you know, but I was happy. I was still sober. Kind of the meetings kind of faded away. I stopped kind of going to meetings, but I still wasn't drinking or drugging. And I saw my girlfriend. So I used to have Fridays off. I was working this is after I finished the schooling. I was working in Newtown, and I had Fridays off. And I remember driving down the street, and I saw Sarah walking her dog down the street, and I was like, oh my God, that is Sarah. And I remember like watching her as I drove by, and I hit her up on Facebook, and we ended up meeting up, and, you know, that was the best move I ever could have made, because I've never been happier in my life ever. I drink alcohol now, but I don't touch any drugs. I can't, I feel like I'm at the point, I've accomplished too much in my life since my last drug use. I can't give that all away. You know, the trust that I've regained with my family, you know, anybody who cares and loves me. You know, I've broken my mom's heart more than a few times. You know, and she's always stuck by me. This just reminded me of something that I wanted to say. So my mom, I remember one thing that really hurt my heart that she had said. I remember being in county and talking to her on the phone, And I was like, yeah, Mom, fuck, I'm back in jail. I'm going to be in here for a while. And I remember her being like, you know what, good. Because, you know, at least I know that you're safe in where you are. You know, I was like, wow, that's how bad I was stressing her out. And I don't do that to her anymore nowadays. You know, it's life is good, you know.
What do you do for work now?
I build cabinets.
Oh,
I
that's
build
so cool.
Carpenter. Like, I work for a company out of North Haven. We do mostly commercial stuff, you know, like pharmacies, vets, doctors' offices, you know, like mass produce. That's what my stepfather does. My mom and him aren't together anymore either, but I'm still in contact with him also. And my brother Will, he lives in Massachusetts. He's, you know, 6 years younger than me. And, you know, I work and I enjoy life, you know, stay out of trouble, you know. And I left prison. I have no parole, no probation, no tails. I'm a free man, which is, it's a good feeling.
That's awesome. Has your felony affected you at all in Connecticut?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. That's another gut-wrenching thing that, you know, I tell a lot of people that really gets to me. That, you know, I think it's like 7 felonies, you know, and it's the UCPV, which is a stolen, I think it's uncontrolled authorization of a vehicle. I have theft, the attempted robbery, the escape, fraud, and maybe it's 6, credit card theft. When my dad died, I had opened up credit cards in his name. He had really good credit. And this is like soon after he died, I had opened up cards in his name and ran up the limits. And those were some of my charges as well. But I remember going and applying, I'm talking just to woodworking shops and them doing background checks and not hiring me. I went through a stint because I was working in Newtown. The company shut down, and I must have applied to about 30 different, every wood shop in Connecticut, and more than half of them do background checks. You know, it's a you know, thing. And if you look, when, you know how if somebody does a background check on you, you get the copy of what the employer's able to see. And I read it myself and I'm like,
I wouldn't hire me.
Yeah, I wouldn't hire me either. You know, it's about, you know, I'm not a sex offender or anything fucking crazy like that or too violent, but it's about stealing, and I don't know. It just doesn't look good on paper.
You know what it doesn't show is it doesn't show your dad getting, you know, murdered right in front of you, and how that triggered drug addiction, which triggered the crimes you committed. It doesn't show that.
No.
That's why this is important, these types of conversations.
Yes, totally. And people change. You know, it's rare. I feel like, especially for, you know, the, you know, felon inmates. I mean, most people end up going right back to prison. I feel like, because it's kind of, a lot of people I knew in prison, that is all they knew. You know, luckily I came from a good family. I was raised, I had jobs before, I had bank accounts. Most people in there don't even have all their teeth, you know, type deal. You know, they end up doing the same thing that they know how to do, and they go back. You know, it's sad. You know, there's not help. You know, I don't know. And America too we have more people locked up in this country than every other country combined, you know, and they call it the land of the free.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad, you know.
What kept you going when you were getting all those no's at your job, when you were looking for work? Because that could be very frustrating, and I'm sure a lot of people that listen can relate to that. So what kept you on track?
I just knew that I feel like I'm good at what I do. I'm very capable. And, you know, I just knew that somebody had to give me a chance. Because once they let me in the door and see my work and what I can do, not judge me by my background, my criminal background, I'll have a job for as long as I need. I just, finding that was not easy for me. I'm lucky I lucked out where I am. The where I am now, the employer actually found me, and he didn't do background checks. Luckily. Otherwise, probably wouldn't have a job there if he did. Are your felonies stuck on your background?
Yeah, but they when I was out working for people, a lot of times they wouldn't come up. Only because it was federal and they didn't run for federal. They just ran like federal sex
offenders.
Yeah. Like when I applied to Whole Foods, I got the background report back and it was just the misdemeanors in Connecticut. The Fed stuff didn't even apply.
Oh.
But people would not hire me just because they would Google search my name.
Yeah.
People do that on search
I do.
social media.
I do. That's another bad thing about me. Like, I hate that. That should be against the law too. You just Google my name, Hawaii, and it's like, I don't know how that is not against the law.
The cool thing is, though, is that this will trump that. This episode will be on the top of Google when people search your name.
Oh, really?
That's a cool aspect of it.
Well, that's a really good thing.
They get to hear it from your side of the story.
Right.
Now when people search my name, it's not the articles are still there, but my platform takes precedent over that.
I see.
So I think it's really cool to be able to do that.
Well, it sure beats my mug shots.
What's your piece of advice you want people to take away from your story?
Really, honestly, I've been contemplating this, for the last few days, knowing and thinking that I was coming here. And I feel like, I get it. No matter when I was doing the worst of my bad stuff, no matter what anybody had told me or said to me, I wasn't going to listen. I did not care, but maybe some people are different, and I just, like everybody else you have on here, or a lot of people you have on here, no matter how bad things get or how bad things are, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. I also feel like in my situation, the further I went down made the better a chance of me coming back up. I had to hit absolute rock bottom to start making the climb back up. It doesn't happen overnight either. It really doesn't. It takes a mindset. You got a want and a way. You have to really start to truly think and act different. You can't resort back to what's easy. Change is not easy. And like I said, it's not like just a light switch you turn on and off. It's not. And in my situation, I feel that I was really fortunate to have a lot of, family members, like my aunt and my mom, my cousin, my brother, like at my worst times, help me through tough times. But knowing that people can go through bad, horrible, awful shit and still be okay. After time heals all wounds. It's another thing I feel. In my case, I believe that. And that would be, I know that was a big answer to the question, but
you did great, man.
That's how I would sum it up.
Well, Andy, I appreciate you coming on the show today. Thanks for sharing your story so openly and candidly. And to think you thought you were a little nervous coveted. You did great, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You're very well spoken, great storyteller. I think the audience is going to love this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man. Happy holiday.